for other people who can't be here with us today, who are probably out still enjoying their summer, not even worrying about classes that are about to start next week or the week after. So, let's see, I have to, there you go. Okay. So welcome everyone today for our monthly membership meeting for the Learner Engagement Division of AECT, the Association for Educational Communications and Technology. So excited to have you all here. I'm currently serving a dual role as the president-elect and the president of the Learner Engagement Division, and it is such a fun place to be. So if you haven't joined us before, I hope we will see you back again. So today, just want to give you a quick couple of updates about LED and what's coming up at our convention in October in Las Vegas. And then we will hear from two of our speakers today who are going to share some practical advice around how to design more intentionally for learner engagement in your courses. And then we'll wrap up with a couple of reminders. So first of all, we have selected our winners for our awards. And we are going to announce these in October. So I hope you'll be able to join us there. We are going to award an Excellence in Innovation for a really fantastic project that was about learning to use AI in teaching and learning. And then another publication that is really has some very important implications for online learning and learning engagement. So hope to see you at that. We have a new initiative coming up, Engaging Ideas. So we would like to share more content around learner engagement. And if you'd like to join us, I'm going to put Danilo's contact information in the chat here. So if you'd like to join us, he is going to have a little info session on Friday afternoon, tomorrow afternoon at 3 p.m. Eastern time. If you can't make that, that's fine. You can just email him and let him know that you're interested in joining this task force where we curate some content around learner engagement and share it out so that more people can learn about all of the different ways of engaging learners in meaningful learning in person, online, all ages. And then let you know about the convention coming up in Las Vegas in October. It will be at Planet Hollywood Monday the 20th through the 24th. And I hope to see some of you there. It is only in person this year. We are going to be doing a virtual convention next year. But this one will be in person and we will have lots of things from learner engagement. So this is just at a glance of some things that you'll see at the convention. One thing that's not on here yet that we're still working on is the learner engagement division with a couple of other divisions. We're working on planning a pub night, a pub trivia night. So having some fun and some drinks and getting all nerdy with each other. So hope to see you there. And you can find more information about the convention online. I'll put the link in the chat here. And hope to see you there. This is what you'll see from the Learner Engagement Division at the convention. We'll, of course, be having sessions around AECT. We'll also be, of course, looking at lots of learner engagement in different ways, in person, outside of school, family engagement, gamification, in different subject areas. And then we'll also have a couple of roundtables too, where we can have some really interesting and engaging discussions around different topics related to learner engagement. So without further ado, we want to jump right into our content today. And we're going to start first with Dr. Rick West, who is one of our prominent members of AECT. and is at Brigham Young University. And I'm going to stop sharing my screen so that he can share his screen and share with you some techniques for engaging your students in your classes this fall. So, Dr. West, take it away.
All right. Thank you. Boy, I'm excited to be here. I love this division. And I see a lot of good friends in the chat room. So I'm excited to be here. How much time do I have for this, by the way?
If you want to take maybe about 15 minutes so that we'll have some time for questions and discussion, stuff like that.
Okay. I'll try to do the best I can. All right. So, I've done a lot of work related to students, and I want to share some of the work that I've done. And some of it I'll just touch on briefly, and you're welcome to ask questions afterwards. And then I've got links to papers and books that you can maybe look at as well. So, trying to think how we can engage students more. And of course, this is the common thing we see, right? You know, students a little bit disengaged in their online classes. And that's the question that, I've been thinking about, that you think about. Why do students disengage, and how can we help them to better engage in their online learning? Because if they engage, they're going to learn more. So that's something that we've been doing a lot of work on. And one of the things that we've been doing in this area, some of you may be familiar with Jared Burrup, especially at George Mason, and Charles Graham at BYU, and Leanna Archambault down in Arizona. We've been developing this framework called the Academic Communities of Engagement, which is really centering the idea of online communities, but not centering it on learning, like communities of inquiry, for example. I think that leads to learning, but we're looking at engagement specifically and what helps students to be engaged. And kind of the thrust of it, we start with this idea that isn't really from us, although we kind of brought some of the literature together into this. But the literature talks about three kinds of engagement, that there's behavioral engagement, affective engagement, and cognitive engagement. So when we say that students are engaged or disengaged, we say, well, you got to break that down. What do you mean by that? Because we can't solve the problem until we know what kind of engagement they have and what kind of disengagement they have. So that's the first thing. And we've come up with some instruments that if you email me, I can send them to you, that we can use with schools so that schools can kind of send them to parents, and parents can assess how their student is engaging and where they're maybe doing well and not doing quite so well. So there's that. And then we started to think, okay, well, what if engagement is like Vygotsky's ZPD? And you would know with the zone of proximal development, the whole idea is that what I can do alone, I can do so much more if I have help. And that these circles start to grow. And as I work with someone else, as long as I have scaffolding and mentoring, then I can do more. And the amount of stuff that I can do on my own will grow. And so then the circle of stuff that I need help with, expands as well. And it just keeps growing, and that's learning. So that is something that we've been thinking about in terms of engagement as well. And we don't use the circles like Vygotsky people do. We use triangles in our model. So here you see the three different kinds of engagement. You have the affective, behavioral, and cognitive engagement. And then we also say, well, in fact, I'll just put it there. There's three levels of engagement right there. But then there's also what we call three levels of community. There's the first, the individual, if we would call that a community. But then there is the course community that surrounds that individual. So those are the students in the class, that's the instructor, it's the school. And that's where most of the research is at, right? It's all about what can we as teachers do to help create a course community. And I think that's great, but the research there is really robust. What we think the research is missing is the personal community, which is the red stuff. And that's the reality that, especially in online learning, that when you're talking about someone learning online, then they're usually like I am. I'm at home right now. They're at home, and the people supporting them are their family, their roommates, their supportive mentors. It's those kinds of people, neighbors even. I mean, those kinds of people are personal communities that support them in their learning and can affect their engagement. And that's never talked about in the literature. So I think one of the big insights that I would share with you is when you think about engagement, don't just think about the class, think about the student's personal community, and if there might be a way to improve that as well. Um, so we think about that, and then the reason why we like the triangles is because then you can start to stretch these different triangles in different ways. So here's a student who says, well, I like this topic that I'm studying, but I don't understand it very well, and I struggle with the homework. Okay, so that's a student, and he's talking about his individual engagement, and he's very affectively engaged. He loves the topic, but he's cognitively not engaged and behaviorally not engaged. He can't do the homework and he doesn't understand it. So now that we've diagnosed that, we know where to help him. He doesn't need affective help. He needs cognitive help and maybe some behavioral help, like some help with managing his day and organizing himself and stuff like that, executive functioning. There could be someone very different, like this student who says, I'm studying online and I'm really smart. I get it. I understand the material, but I don't love the topic. And because I don't love the topic, I'm struggling to stay organized and I'm struggling to focus. So here's someone with really high cognitive engagement, but low on the affective and behavioral engagement, right? And you can see the triangle stretching there. And here's someone else, whoops, who says, I never did well in school, but I'm in this online class. I meet with friends each week to study. It's still hard, but the TAs help me. I don't know how to get help at home without the TA, though. So here's someone that has really strong affective engagement, a really strong course community, as kind of indicated by these peers who are helping them, but not really much from the personal community. And that's where the weakness is for the student. So that's kind of the main idea of this model, the academic communities of engagement, which is, and we think about, well, how can we use these ideas to help us design now more engaging courses? And I think there are some implications for us. One is, of course, provide a better course community. And there's a lot of research on that, and it's good research. But then I think we can also add to that, can we coach students and parents on how to grow their personal community? And a lot of our research is in diagnosing the challenges that parents face in supporting their students, what the parents' needs are. We talk about student needs, what's the parent needs in online learning? And how do we help the parents? And we're coaching schools, we're working with a school district, well, this all of the schools. We're working with all the online schools out in Indiana in like developing diagnostic tools so that they can understand what their parents need and can create solutions to help their parents be better prepared to support their online students. I think we've also done some work with training TAs. A lot of times when we train TAs, we teach them to do the cognitive engagement. All right, do you understand this material? You don't? Okay, let me help you. And we've been doing some work at BYU to teach TAs how to do all ABC of this, how to help with the affective engagement, how to help with the behavioral engagement, and we're seeing some really good benefits from that as well. And then we think it's also just good for you as designers, just to use this model to reflect. If you're wondering, how can I design? We're really good as designers in coming up with solutions. Sometimes we don't always see the problems the right way. And so maybe this is a way to help you as you think about this next semester to say, all right, what can we do to help, or what kinds of reasons might there be for students not being engaged in this material? Could there be affective problems? Could there be behavioral problems? And then you could think through solutions and design solutions to help with those situations. So that was the first thing I wanted to share today. Let me share another idea with you with the time that I've got, maybe getting a little bit more practical. A lot of my other research is in ideas about how to make classroom discussions more cognitively and affectively engaging. Now that we know what our engagement terms are, how do we do that? And I believe a lot in human connection. And so I think a lot about, well, how can we keep the human connection in online learning? And I think if we do, students are more engaged. But that's the question. Online learning isn't inherently human necessarily. So how do we keep the human in the online learning? And I think about Richard Collada, who's one of my colleagues. He was in my cohort at BYU when I was a student, and he's the CEO of ISTE. And he says, learning is inherently social. We need to see a shift in using technology less for presenting content and more as a tool to design, create, explore, and connect. So maybe that's another tip I might leave you as you plan your semesters is we do pretty well as instructional designers about designing cognitive engagement solutions with technology. But maybe think, how can we use technology to help students connect with each other, to build community, and to build that human connection with each other. One of the ways that I've worked on doing this is with video. And we know about synchronous video. That's what we're doing here with Zoom. Synchronous video, I think, is awesome. It has some great things about it, but it can be overdone, and people can start to zoom out, you might say, and zone out. And so, can asynchronous video, which is like a discussion thread, except for with video, provide the human connection, but then also some of the advantages of asynchronicity, basically? And we think it can. And there's a book here. It's a free book on EdTech Books. So if you see that link there, edtechbooks.org slash asynchronous underscore video, that's the book. There's a whole book there. It's written for practitioners, and it's got lots of tips and strategies in there. You can go read that book if you want to. And it's kind of to try to get away from this idea, right? You're going to make me do another discussion board, you monster. I would rather do anything, torture me, but don't make me do another discussion board, right? So, all right, asynchronous video could be an alternative. It provides some of the human aspects of video with that social presence, that immediacy, can improve motivation that way, can improve these ideas of relationship and trust. We think it can give better feedback on assignments. It's instead of just a cold written out, hey, you missed things here, you can talk to your students about their assignments and record a video to talk to them and use it for different ways. You can use it in different ways in the classroom for, discussion boards where you're asking questions, where you're giving feedback. Um, Asynchronous review sessions where they're asking questions and TAs are responding. You can do demonstrations of material. You can do brainstorming, which is kind of nice in a way to remove the synchronicity sometimes from brainstorming, gives everyone a chance to think and reflect before they post their thoughts and their ideas. It's better for introverts that way. Um, Student advising, mentoring, developing consensus. There's lots of different things you can use asynchronous video for. So here are some strategies that I would leave you with for using asynchronous video, but I think these would also probably belong also with the synchronous video as well. So some strategies for increasing student engagement in your video content this semester. Number one is don't be afraid to show the real you. Sometimes we record our videos in a very sterile, professional almost environment, and students, they want to know us. They want to get to know us. And they will feel like we're a real person rather than a robot if they see who we are as a real person. So I love, the first one here on the left, Chris Haskell's at Boise State. I mean, look at him, and you've got the Minecraft in the background and the mountain bike. You kind of know who he is a little bit. And my favorite is the one on the right, very different. So Chris and Lloyd Reber are very different people. And Lloyd taught this online course at Western Governors University where he would record his videos. He would start each video with him walking around his farm. He has an 8-acre farm, if you don't know that, out in Athens, Georgia. And he would walk around the farm and record the intro to his videos standing next to Belle, his cow. And it was just delightful. And that's who Lloyd is. That's why we love Lloyd, those of us that know him. And that was a way for online students to get to know him as well. And I thought it was just wonderful. Number two, show emotions. Sometimes when we record our videos, we're so like professional and stoic, and it's okay to show emotions. And I've got clips from some Pixar movies where there's no talking, there's no dialogue, but everyone loves these little movies because the facial expressions are just so great. And so maybe go back and watch your videos without the sound on and say, am I communicating things? I once had a couple students that were working for me as TAs, and I got very different student ratings from them. The course content was exactly the same, but the videos that they recorded to the students, just to give feedback on assignments, it wasn't like most of the content was in the course. But one of them was very animated, very kind of happy and positive, loving in the responses he would give. The other was just kind of he was a nice person, but whenever he recorded a video, it was just, bland and cut and dry. And the students didn't respond to that very well. So show emotions. Number three, personalize the video. Don't just record a generic video and use it for 10 years. Give it a little fresh update every year. Um, Let the students know that you know what's going on in their lives. You know about the football game that happened last week. You know about the whatever, so throw in some of that as well and personalize it. Number four, follow good practices with video. Keep it short. We know video, asynchronous video particularly, 3 to 5 minutes, right? Even less if you can. So keep the video short, have good lighting, framing and staging, make sure you're framed well. So the next few slides I'm going to show, this is my collaborator, Jared Burrup, and some of you know him. He's probably presented at your meeting before, but he's got some delightful little tips on how to do video, and I'm just going to use his tips because they're really great. Um, well, first, talking about good feedback, use the bun metaphor. Uh, Build the relationship, that's the bun. Put on some cheese, some specific praise, then the meat, that's where you got to correct them. Then some lettuce, some general praise, and then some more support as you close off the video. Would be a good way to record a feedback video for people. All right, but here's from Jared. Here's what not to do. These are different ways you should not record your video, okay? And we've all done it, but let's try not to do it anymore. Student engagement goes down if the videos look terrible. They just do. You don't have to be in a professional studio. In fact, I love Anne. I love your backdrop there, your home. I think it's okay to be in your home in your home setting, but just make sure you have some good lighting. So don't have the light behind you. Face the light, right? That's important. Don't face the blinds, and then you get the zebra effect, right? Have some normal lighting that looks good. Sometimes people, you'll see this, they get the little makeup light shining right at their face, but then the rest of the room is dark and it looks like they're in a haunting or something like that. So don't do that either. That's scary. Um, there's the hostage. This is a little bit what I'm doing. The idea here is you just are sitting behind a white wall and it looks like you're in an interrogation room, and it's kind of like, is there anyone else here? Are you okay? Like, are you okay, Jared? You look like you're in this like empty room there, are you being tortured? So, like I said, I don't see everybody's videos right now. I see Anne's video. I think it's great. A lot of people have their screens off, but so, have some normal stuff in your background. Now, I'm actually a bad example of this right now. Normally, I would record out in my living room, but I've got some family out in the living room right now. So I'm doing the hostage thing right now. It's okay. It would be better if I decorated my wall a little bit better. All right, the nosy professor. Don't record from the bottom up. We don't want to see your nose hairs. All right. So you're on your laptop, figure out a way to put your laptop on books. That's actually what Jared does. Jared's 6'8", so he struggles with this. He's a tall dude. But if you see his setup where he does his online teaching, he has a stack of books and he puts his laptop on the book so that it can be, level with him. The toddler is the opposite. Don't be chopping off the bottom half, looking like you're short. Don't be too close. Don't be the close talker. I bet you feel uncomfortable already, even though it's a virtual video. Don't do the opposite of be too far away. I just went to a webinar just before today's webinar where the presenter was doing the social distancing thing, and you can't see him very good. It reduces presence, the idea of presence, social presence. All right, I see this a lot where people are reading off the screen. If you have to do that, have your notes up where the webcam is so that it looks like you're looking at students when you're really reading the screen, but try not to be looking down. And believe it or not, I see this all the time. And I see it from people who should know better, instructional designers, professional teachers, and they are looking to the side at their second screen. Don't do that either, right? Uh, it doesn't work for the students. It disengages them. All right, the TMI, I don't see this as much from teachers. I see this from students sometimes, where they record their videos in weird places. Like, and this came from, we had an example of a student who was in bed with her husband. Now, luckily they were both clothed, but they were in bed and she was like recording her video to send to the class. And we were like, okay, let's not do that anymore. Let's not do that. That's too much. So be professional still. And what this is right here that needs a trim, you can see what Jared's doing there at the end, is you're acting happy, you're all excited, and then, okay, now I got to go push stop. All right, how do I stop sharing my screen? And then while you do that, you're making a funny face and you're looking all grumpy. You just need to go trim that off at the end. So it ends on the positive note and doesn't end on the, all right, how do I turn this off here? Okay, what, kind of thing. So that's probably all the time I have for today. I've also done work related to social annotation, which is a way to engage people online, but we're probably out of time for right now, so I'm going to turn it over for questions. And thank you for having me.
Thank you so much, Dr. West. That was very entertaining and engaging. So we'll take just a couple of minutes for some questions before we move over to Laura, and then we'll have a little bit of time at the end for some more questions too. So is there something someone wants to add into the chat, or if you would like to unmute and ask a question? I do know one person asked if we could get slides.
Yes, so there's my email, rickwest@byu.edu. If you email me, I can send you the slides. If you ask, I can also send you the link if you missed it, the link to the Academic Communities of Engagement paper, and then also the link to the asynchronous video book that we've got. And then we've also got a paper on social annotation as well. Well, actually, I don't know if it's quite done yet, so maybe it's still coming. So yeah, email me and I can send that to you.
Don't be shy if you have a question.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Thank you, Dr. Reg, for the wonderful presentation. And I just wonder about how do you feel when you watch a video that is generated by AI, like the AI avatar video? What do you think of these kind of videos?
We're going to see more and more of that, aren't we? And actually, I could have talked about that. I thought about talking about that. Maybe I should have. But Jared and I and Leanna and Patrick Lowenthal have put together a framework for some advice on how to use AI and human video together so that we don't lose humanness in our online learning. And AI is going to become more and more part of online learning, but how do we keep the human aspect of the online learning? So if you want that paper as well, it's called the ABCs basically of using online video with AI. So I can send you that paper as well. But I think this is a really interesting thing for us to think about because AI is we're going to need to use it because it is so efficient. It's really good at the cognitive engagement, right? It can explain things probably better than the human can in a lot of cases, especially if you do a good AI prompt and good AI video and you review it appropriately. But I'm just not convinced that AI is going to help with the affective engagement as well. And so we need to not forget that that's an important part of learning. You can be totally cognitively engaged in understanding the material and still drop out of the class, still not do very well, and it's just because you don't love it. And so people have to love it. And part of loving it is there's a social aspect to learning. And so that doesn't mean we can't use AI, but we need to make sure there is enough of us in the class that the students know who we are. And there's enough of their peers that they feel like they've met people in the class. Um, and I think that's what I would say. So yeah, AI video is going to happen. We're going to need it. It's there, but let's not avoid using some human touches as well.
Okay, thank you very much.
Great. And we have a question in the chat from Shripriya Dogra, who thanks you for a wonderful presentation. And she wants to know, or he, I'm sorry, wants to know about some alternatives for discussion boards.
All right, all right. Well, thank you. I'll pay you your under the table for the lofting me up a softball there. And I won't take long on this since I think my time is short. But that was a little bit about why I got into social annotation. So, alternatives to discussion boards. One, I think video discussion threads are more interesting. So there are tools that you can do where you can do video discussion. That's the asynchronous video that we talked about. That can also get overdone. All of these tools can get overdone where then people are sick of it. So I think using a mix of things is good. When I teach, I use some discussion boards, some video, and then I also use something called social annotation, which the idea here is the reading, you read something and everybody is annotating the reading together. Kind of, they're highlighting, they're leaving notes, and they're doing it together. So the tools that are popular is Hypothesis, Perusal, Digo, tools like that. And that's where I think this can replace discussion boards. It replaces discussion boards for me because what we used to do is say, all right, go read the book. Now come here and leave a little comment in the discussion thread. Now go check the book. Okay, now leave an answer to somebody else. Oh, somebody asked a question. Let's go back to the book. Okay, let's go back here and ask, a question. And it was going back and forth between the reading and the discussion thread, and that was annoying people. With this idea is the questions and the discussion are in the reading. So you don't leave the reading to do the discussion. You do the discussion in the reading. The nice thing about that too is sometimes what would happen before is people would read the whole thing and then go, all right, what should I say about this reading? I'll say this was really interesting. I loved it. I thought the insights were great. And they leave some kind of generic comment, right? In the discussion thread. But they had better ideas in the moment they were reading. They just forgot those neat questions and neat ideas that they had. So what we try to do here is say, all right, we're going to have the discussion as you read it. Ask your questions. I will answer. And because it tags me, so it emails me when a student asks a question, and I can go answer the question, or I can wait a couple days, let the students answer each other, and then I go answer if they haven't been able to find the answer. So this is kind of the way it looks. This is one of my classes. And I don't know if you can tell already, but the comments being left are better than the comments you normally get in a discussion thread. And that's what our research found as well. There was more kind of interaction. There was more deep thinking in the comments than what we were getting in discussion threads. So that here's some examples of that. The nice thing that I like about it too is Perusal particularly has automatic grading. So you can set up the parameters and say, and here are some of the parameters right here. You can say, all right, they have to they have to leave at least 3 comments, and the comments can't all be in the first third of the paper. They have to read the whole paper. So they have to have at least a couple comments in the last half of the paper, and they have to respond to at least 2 peers. Like you can set up all this stuff, and then it'll just automatically score it and grade it. And you can always overrule the grade. So if a student says, I don't think it's giving me a fair score, I can go in and adjust it and like regrade it. But the thing I like about that is then I no longer am counting points. I don't read the discussion board to count points. I read the discussion board to engage in the conversation. So I still read all of these comments that the students leave on the reading, but I'm not worried about grading. I'm just reading and saying, oh, that's a good question. Let me answer that. Oh, here, let me give a little thought here. And I'm just showing up as a human and not as a grader. And I actually think that's really powerful. So that's one tip for making discussion boards a little bit better is asynchronous video, I think is great. Using variety, don't get stuck doing the same thing. And look at social annotation like Perusal. I think that's another way to do it.
Thank you so much. I am also a huge fan of Perusal. And Dr. Eric Mazur from Harvard, who was one of the instigators of that platform. And it is super user-friendly, integrates with your LMS, all of that, not paid for promoting the product. So we'll have some time at the end for a few more questions, but let's turn it over to Dr. Laura Howard, who works in the Teaching and Learning Center at Kennesaw State University, also English professor as well, and she's going to share some other ideas for engagement in your courses.
Yeah, thank you so much, Anne. And thanks, Dr. West. That was so engaging. And I wrote down a lot of notes, not the least of which is, and I already knew this, but I had limited options today that I am a little bit backlit. So hopefully it's not too distracting for everyone. I'm going to share my screen though. And so hopefully the slides will distract from that somewhat. So let me, All right. Can everyone see that okay? All right, great. Well, as Anne mentioned, I'm Laura Howard. I'm from Kennesaw State University. And about a year ago, I made the transition from a full-time faculty member to a full-time staff member in our Center for Excellence in Teaching and Learning. Faculty development has been really important to me throughout my career, and it's something that I'm really passionate about. And so glad that I get to do full-time every day. I do teach part-time, not every semester, but I am like you preparing for fall semester. I am going to be teaching an online class this fall. And so I have been thinking a lot about the learner engagement, but also thinking about ways to make teaching, engaging for myself. And so what I want to talk about today is a little bit different. It's something that we don't always talk about very much, and it's the faculty engagement piece. Sometimes, and I imagine there are people in our audience today who at various times in their careers, maybe even now, have felt less than engaged in their own classes. And I think there are a variety of reasons we'll talk about in a moment for this, but this can especially be challenging for those teaching fully online course loads, or who've been teaching online for a substantial portion of their workload recently. So a couple of things that I've been really exploring lately are how faculty can feel more engaged and also find more joy in their teaching, and how evidence-based teaching and learning strategies can actually help them accomplish that. And so there are many reasons for, let me just minimize the thumbnail video here. Many reasons, many factors impacting faculty engagement, and they're the same kinds of things that impact our students. Personal circumstances, things that are happening in our lives outside of the classroom, outside of work, can definitely impact how we're feeling about our work, our workload itself. So if we're in a really heavy research workload, or if we're being tasked with a really big service project, that can also impact how engaged we feel in our teaching. The culture of our institution, our department, our university, the higher education in general can also be a factor. And then there's burnout, which we hear a lot about and is a term that I think is used very broadly. What that can look like for individuals in the workplace, and this is based on Maslach's research, is overextension, which interestingly in our culture is often praised and often seen as like, you must be doing it all, you're doing a great job, so many irons in the fire, if you're feeling overextended. So there, it's debatable whether that technically qualifies as burnout, because there is a bit of a reward to that, but it can leave you feeling frustrated. It can look like feeling ineffective in the classroom. It can look like feeling cynical. There's also a concern for students piece that impacts faculty engagement. We know that our students today are struggling more than ever with mental health, that they need more support than ever before. And those can weigh very heavily on us as faculty members. And then there's the alignment of course design and teaching strengths. And for me, this is where this direction I really want to lean into. This is where we look to our own strengths and values, and the things that brought us to this work in the first place, the things that we love about teaching. And we leverage those in addition to those evidence-based strategies to design courses that meet our needs and our students' needs. And so I'll talk a little bit more about that today. So if you are feeling like not as you have been in the past, or if you're struggling with something outside of work that's affecting your ability to feel engaged or joyful, I'm using those terms as closely related, even though they don't mean the same thing, but I'm thinking about them kind of along the same spectrum for this work. If you're feeling that way, a few things that you can do right away include joining in community with others to discuss teaching. So congratulations, you're doing that today. So you're already doing something to help you deepen your engagement. Opportunities beyond this are, engage with your for teaching and learning if you have one at your university, also national organizations that focus on teaching and learning. You can also start mentoring groups or some sort of group perhaps in your department where people gather to talk about teaching. So think about that. Connect with your institutional resources. I mentioned teaching centers, but I think we can tap some other institutional resources as well. For example, if you're teaching writing, many universities have a writing center, and many writing centers have resources for faculty. And actually, this doesn't just have to be for those of us who teach writing. It could be for anybody for whom writing is a big part of your class or an important skill in your class. Writing centers often have OER, open educational resources that they can connect us with. They have sometimes even workshops that faculty and staff can attend that can help them engage and then pass that on to their students. But it can also just give you a slightly different perspective on what you're doing that can be useful. And then setting the stage for joyful teaching. I'm going to talk more about this in a minute, but this means getting to know yourself a little bit better and who you are as a college instructor today. And that might be different from who you were when you got into this, or it might be maybe you're just starting out and you're not quite sure. And this has to do with thinking about like your teaching persona, but also how you want to just show up in your classroom for your students, and then how you represent that in various ways, whether through language, through the types of learning activities and methods of assessment that you're using, different things like that. So know a little bit about who you are, what you want to do to have fun with your students, to enjoy your students. Engaging in teacher reflection is really important. It's not something we always think we have the time for or make the time for, but keeping a journal, just even having something informal. My boss does this thing that I love where he just keeps a Word file called for next time. And I've started doing it for a lot of different purposes. But if you do this for teaching, your for next time document could just be a place to park ideas, you know, as they come up as you're teaching, like, oh, I might change this next semester. This isn't really working well. Or all these discussion boards are making me miserable. I never want to do another discussion board in my teaching again. Look for ways to avoid this in the future, those kinds of things. So doing some reflection throughout the semester, especially at the end of the semester, and when possible, you know, looking at your student, the feedback from your students as you engage in that reflection, and kind of thinking about that as you think of ideas for the future. And then again, leveraging evidence-based strategies, and some that come to mind here that I think are really useful for faculty when we're thinking about ways to engage more deeply with our students and to find joy. If we're in a season where we're not exactly feeling that in our teaching, include like tilt, transparency in learning and teaching models, specifically the template for instructions for assignments. It does a few things. It just makes it easier for students to know what you want them to do. It's a place to clarify expectations, be transparent with them, but it also prompts you as the instructor to really think about what your objectives are for your students and really align all of that, you know, your assignment design with the learning outcomes of the course and your goals for your students. And as you work through the template, you really have to articulate, you know, what those are. And the way that seems like, oh, well, that's a lot of work to find joy. It's a little bit of work on the front end, but I do think it frees you up to be able to connect with students and spend more of your time on relationship building and less of your time answering questions or clarifying instructions and things like that. So we'll speak more about that in a moment. Building relationships, we know that relationship building is vital for student success. I'm thinking here about Peter Felton and Leo Lambert's work on relationship-rich education, activating students' prior knowledge. So one thing that happens sometimes is faculty will like come for a teaching consultation or something, and they'll have some frustration about students, like they're just not prepared for this class, and you know that frustration is linked to burnout. That can make them feel you know, like they're not as effective as well. They can just have a lot of different feelings around that. And so thinking about, and a lot of times I'll ask faculty this in teaching consultations, is like, do your students know that? Like, do they know that you're wanting them to, you know, activate their prior knowledge to build on their prior knowledge, and that they can use their prior knowledge to learn these new skills? And so sometimes you have to back up quite a bit to make sure that students, well, to assess that prior knowledge, but also to make students understand that they need to activate that prior knowledge to be successful. And then there's creating a welcoming course climate, which makes things better for you, makes things better for the students. And it's a way to really set the foundation for building better relationships in your class. So one of the things that was promised today is some actionable strategies, things that you can do right away this semester to kind of deepen your engagement, re-engage, depending on what your needs are. And so some things I wanted to I just wanted to boil this down, give you a few actionable items here. Analyze your syllabus and your course design for evidence of your teaching persona, your personal and professional values, and your teaching strengths. If you don't know what those are, I would suggest spending some time reflecting on those. One activity I sometimes do with faculty, sometimes do it with students, sometimes do it in my own coaching practice is I work with people to think about their values. And I often use Brene Brown's long list of values and have people identify 10 and then narrow that down to 5 and then narrow that down to 2. And then just narrowing your values down to what's most important to you, and then looking for evidence of that in your course materials, in your course design, in your communications with students is a way to think about whether all those things are aligned. And maybe if they are more aligned, you can find more joy. Building rapport, so making sure that we're using language that helps us build rapport and support relationship rich teaching instead of using punitive language in our syllabus. You may also want to think about, since you're putting together syllabi now, think about your course policies and the level of flexibility. We know that often students have a lot going on, lots of competing responsibilities and things happening in their lives, and they may need some grace, as we all do. And so think about the kind of language you're using, the tone, and the level of flexibility that you have in your courses. Setting expectations, I talked about TILT earlier, but as you're designing your syllabus, think about whether the expectations and instructions in your syllabus are clear. And you can do that in such a way that, again, is not punitive, or you don't sound like you're setting them up. Papers submitted after the deadline automatically lose 10 points per day, or something like that. A way to kind of reverse that is to be eligible for full credit, submit your assignments on time. Just thinking more about here's what I expect you to do instead of here's what will happen if you don't do it. I think that's a good way to maybe reframe our approach. And then building in time for connection, thinking about the time that you actually have just to enjoy and experience your students, whether that's through office hours, if you're teaching online, maybe that's through virtual conferences that students contact you to set up. There are lots of ways to do that. Sometimes I know professors will attend different events on campus and invite students to join, invite the class to join, go to a play on campus or an art exhibit or something like that, but build in that time for connection. So I'll just very quickly go over one example, and that will still give us about 8 or 9 minutes for questions. But I did this in my class, and I wanted to just tell you about it really quickly. And I'm still really at the very beginning of this work, this project. I now, as a faculty developer, have the bandwidth to explore something that I've always wanted to explore in more depth. So I'm really still in the lit review phase, but also I have some observations from my own teaching and things I've tried. So I thought I'd share one of those with you today, which is the fact that I noticed I was teaching fully online for a long, long time. And I just didn't feel like one semester it just hit me like I just feel so disconnected from my students. And the whole reason I love teaching is because I love to build those relationships and like what can I do? And I was also doing I mentioned earlier I'm a trained coach, so I was also coaching clients, and I was thinking about why am I not taking some of the coaching competencies that I leverage in that work and applying them more to my teaching? So one of the foundational principles in coaching is that everybody is already creative, resourceful, and whole. And I started to wonder whether my syllabus and my course materials conveyed that belief that I hold to my students. Did they feel like I saw them as already creative, resourceful, and whole as students in my class? So I started to think about, okay, low stakes writing, low stakes assignments are one way that research shows that we can help support student success, as is metacognition, helping students learn to think about their thinking, right? And these can foster all sorts of wonderful things, including self-efficacy, but also relationships and connection. And so I designed weekly warm-up activities where students just respond to a coaching question prompt that I've designed that invites them to explore their strengths, their goals, their own criteria for success. I could give you some examples if you're interested in a moment, but I designed this as a way for students to write and explore some of of the same things that I would have a client explore in coaching to learn more about themselves. And then as these posts came in, I was able to read through them and learn so much about my students and just develop a whole other level of care for them as people. I noted common themes that were coming up for different students. I was able to offer some feedback to them. And then the best part is that I was able to kind of create this informal feedback loop where I was able to reference things that they had written about their view of success, their criteria for success, their strengths, their goals. I was able to reference that in my feedback and my work with them later in the class. And I just noticed such a better experience for myself, for my students. I really started to feel joy in my teaching again through that activity. And so I just wanted to share that with you. I'm happy to answer any questions. A few references here, and I'd love to connect with you. So please email me if you would like to connect. I'm happy to talk more about these ideas. I'll stop there in case there are questions.
Thank you so much, Dr. Howard. That was very inspiring about getting back to why you teach in the first place. So do we have any questions that you want to drop in the chat or you want to unmute and ask? Your email.
Sure.
Do you want to add that to the?
Yes, I will add this here. And if you'd like a copy of the slides, I'm happy to provide them. Just email me. That is not my email address. I don't know what I'm doing. Hold on. That is do not email that person. Can we delete that out of the thing? Kennesaw.edu. So I have a Gmail account, but this is my actual work account, my faculty account that I'll be checking. So.
And yes, Priya, do you have a question?
Yeah, I have a question, and thank you so much, Dr. Howard, for this presentation. And
Sure.
so I'm a PhD student, and this fall I'm going to teach a course, which is writing intensive. And it has taken me a couple of years to understand why my own voice is important where I'm writing, but how do I convey that to my students, and especially with them worried about the rubrics or meeting the assignment, whatever requirements. So even with that in place, how can I encourage them, like maybe explicitly or like through other ways? Thank you.
Sure. Well, congrats on teaching a writing intensive class. That's exciting. One thing that I've seen in my many years of teaching writing is that students think that often think that their writing is not good enough. There's a lot of imposter syndrome in the writing classroom, and students, especially, they'll know you're a PhD student. They see their professors as the experts that they are, and they feel intimidated often sharing their own writing. And so it's about being transparent with them that you want to hear their voice, you want to learn their voice, and really creating an invitational kind of space where they understand that it's okay to make mistakes and revise. It's okay to take a few drafts to figure out what it is that they want to say. I mean, I think this is changing a lot, obviously in the age of AI. There's more to say about that, but I think a lot of it depends on how you frame it for students and letting them know that you want to hear their authentic voice. You want them to figure out what that is. And you have to have a lot of opportunities for them to just write, like low stakes writing assignments where they can explore that. That's the example I shared about the coaching prompts. That's another thing that allowed me to do in that class, is give them the opportunity to write about something they were the expert on. This is their life, and it's personal. And they seemed really engaged with that. And so I think when we can give students the opportunity to write about things which they feel confident writing about, that can help them practice their writing skills. Yeah. So does that help answer your question? It's a big question. There's lots to say, but I'll just stop there.
It does. Thank you so much. But I thank you for bringing my attention back to connecting it to their expertise, their experiences in life. And I think that one does work. So I'm going to try that in the upcoming semester. Thank you.
Awesome. You're welcome.
Great. Other questions? I think we have time for one more.
I have an issue sometimes with learners just maybe not engaging when I do classroom assessment, techniques and try to get in there and get them to think. I call it roadkill syndrome. Sometimes they avoid and just ignore the teacher. Well, I have some students that are very specific about they answer the teacher. But do you have any recommendations for how to, really get them involved more? They have to do more. It's not their two replies, what they have to do. We're getting them to do a little more.
Yeah, I would say I think there are two things here. I think both assignment design and outreach are important. When it comes to this question, I think like lately for me personally, I've been redesigning a lot of activities and assignments that I typically do with my students. I haven't taught in 1 year, so I'm like very nervous about the upcoming semester because the game has changed when you teach writing in the age of generative AI. So I'm rethinking a lot of my assignments, but I'm also just trying to make them more, more interesting for the students. And so I think exploring, it depends on your context and what you're teaching and what the learning outcomes are. But I think that there are opportunities to, I think the social annotation strategy that Dr. West shared is really, really great. Moving away from some of the things that are maybe like students are just used to, doing the discussion boards and just saying, oh, I totally agree with your idea. Just trying some new things. And then outreach. I have a "Are you okay?" email. I just queue up when a student just isn't engaging, and like something about just saying directly. And I'm thinking in terms of an online context, but this works great face to face too. Just directly reaching out to the student and saying like, "Hey, I'm worried you're not engaging much," and maybe that's a change, or maybe it's something they've been doing all semester, but like I want to get to know you. I want to get to know you and what motivates you and what, why you're here. So please, email me back and let me know, or let's set up time to talk about those things. So anytime you can make that one-to-one connection with them outside of the classroom, I think you'll see a big difference in engagement in the classroom.
Well, thank you so much for
Sure.
everyone for joining us today, but especially for Dr. Laura Howard and Dr. Rick West for sharing so much valuable information. We really appreciate that. And I hope that you will all continue to stay engaged with Learner Engagement Division. I did put the link to our website in the chat. And we do have these monthly membership meetings. There's something different every time. Sometimes it's a conversation in a working session. Actually, next month, our next membership meeting, we'll actually have a workshop where you'll actually be doing some work, where we will have you prepare your convention presentations and have them be more engaging. So I hope you will join us for that. And wish you all the best of luck in your new semester and the new academic year. And I hope to see you all again. Thank you for coming.
Thanks so much, everyone. Have a great day.
Yeah, thank you.